So let's get started with our first case study. So this is the data set which has three columns: manager ID, job ID, and as of date. So this data set basically store all the details whenever a manager posted a job on the company's career webpage for the candidates. So for example, for manager ID 1, he or she has posted three jobs with job ID 100, 101, and 102. And as of date, basically when they have posted that job. So for example, job number ID 101 has posted on 31st of January, whereas job ID 102 has been posted on 3rd of September 2021. Similarly, for manager ID 3, they have posted three jobs, 105, 106, 107 with their respective dates. Now, based on this data set, we have three follow-up questions. So let's get started one by one. So the first question it's asking is find the total count of new jobs and active jobs. So the definition of new job is whenever any manager posted their first job is called a new job. So for example, for manager ID 1, job ID 100 will call it as a new job because that's the first job he or she has posted. Similarly, for manager ID 2, 103 is their first job will be labeled as a new job. Now, active job. So the active job is whenever any manager posted their next job after their first one. So for example, for manager ID 1, job number 101 and 102 will be called as an active job because that is their second and the third job. Similarly, for manager ID 2, 104 will be called as an active job. And for manager ID 4, there is no active job for the manager ID 4 because he or she has posted only one job, which is 108, and that will be labeled as a new job. Now, in order to find total count of new jobs and active jobs, so the way I'm thinking to use the concept is that, so whenever manager posted their first job is always called as a new job. Or in other way, I can say that total count of distinct manager is equal to total count of new jobs. And in order to count the total active jobs, I can say that, hey, find the total count of records in the data set and then subtract the total distinct count of manager, which basically will give you the count of active jobs. So let's see on the SQL server how can we write the syntax for it. So let's first see what are the data we have. So we can see it has a very small data set of 9 records and which has manager ID, job ID, and as of date. So let's first calculate the count of new jobs. So as we discussed, we can say that count of distinct manager ID as new job, and we discussed that in order to find a total count of active jobs, I can say that, hey, find the total number of records and then minus count of distinct manager ID, which basically will give you total count of active jobs. So when we run it, and we will get the count of, so there are 4 new jobs because there are 4 distinct managers are there and there are 5 active jobs. Now the second question is asking find the total count of new jobs, active jobs, and the reactivated jobs. Here the definition of new job will remain same. So whenever any manager posted their first job, we'll call it as a new job. But for the definition of active job has been changed. So what it means is that, so whenever any manager posted their next job within 180 days from the previous job, we will call it as an active job. But if any manager posted their next job after 180 days from the previous job, we will call it as a reactivated job. So in order to understand this, so let's see on the bottom. So I have created a 4th column which is job underscore flag. So we can see that for job number ID, that is the first job for manager ID. So we are labeling as new. This manager has posted the second job on 31st of January, which is within 30 days difference. So I am calling as an active. Whereas the third job they have posted on 3rd of September, which is basically more than 180 days from their previous job, which is 101. So I'm labeling as a reactivated job. So in this way, we need to calculate how many total count of new, active, and reactivated. So the way I'm planning to solve this problem is to first create a subquery to create a job flag column, which basically store the labels, and we will derive this column using the lag of date functions across each manager. And then we find the difference of two dates, previous job and the current job, and then check the condition if less than 180 or greater than 180. Once we come to know, and then finally we will use a subquery table to do the aggregation and then find the total number of new active and the reactivated jobs. So let's see on the SQL how can we solve this problem. So let me run the select star again just to see the name of all the columns again. And now let's go one by one and I can show you the output for each of the subsets. So manager ID, job underscore ID as of date. So let's find the previous job date for each of the managers. So the way we can do is to use a lag Windows function, lag of as of date, partition by manager ID, order by as of date, and we can label it as previous date, previous, let's say, job date, and then run it. So let me put from, and we can see that the previous job date has been calculated for each of the manager. So we can see for 101, their current posting date is 2021 31st of January, and this column is telling the previous job date. So previous job date is 1st of January. So it's finding. So what the next thing what we can do is to find the difference between these two dates. So we can use date of difference, day, because we want to count the total number of days. Then we will subtract the 2 days. So and let's call it days difference. And we can see now we are getting the number of days difference as well. So now based on this days difference, we can use a case statement and then label as new activate or active job or reactivated job. So let's say case when date or difference greater than 180, then let's say reactivated. Similarly, and then when less than equal to 180, let's say it's active, and then I'm just putting else new job, and then close it and as, let's say, job flag. And let's see what output we will get here. And now we can see that we have got the job flag label as new job, activate, active and reactivated. Now we will just use the aggregation function group by to count the total number of new job, active jobs and the reactivated jobs. So let's say I'm putting this as from as A. Now A dot job flag, and then count of star, and now group A dot job flag. Now it's telling me that in this data set there are 3 active jobs, 4 new jobs and 2 reactivated jobs. Now let's move on to the third question of this case study. So let me go back. So in the question number 3 on the bottom, it's asking find the total count of new jobs, active jobs and the reactivated jobs for each manager. So basically definition are exactly same like question 2. Now in this question it's just asking find for each manager how many they have activated, active jobs, reactivated and new job. So it's very straightforward. We can just add another dimensionality, which is manager ID here. And in this way, it will give you for each manager ID how many total number of, let's say, and in this way it will tell me that across each manager how many active new job and reactivated and so on. So the next case study is we have given a survey data and which has like 5 columns in it: survey ID, user ID, survey response, and data. So the way it stores the data in this table is, so let's say a company has sent a survey ID 100 to a customer. So whenever they send any survey to a customer, let's say they have sent to user ID 1, they will put the value of survey column is yes, that they have sent the survey, and the response would be null. And this would be date like when the survey was sent to the user. Now, if a user responded to this survey, then we will log another record of it. So which will say that survey ID 100, user ID 1, and this time survey column would have a flag null, and the response would be yes, and the user have responded back on 4th of or 7th of April. So this is the table basically. So we can see for survey ID 101. So this survey ID 101 was sent to the user ID 2. Indicator would be yes, response would be null, and it was sent on 8th of April. But if you see for this 101, we don't have a second record in the table. So it means that the customer has not responded back to this survey. With another example on 103 survey ID. So this survey ID 103 was sent to the user ID 2. Survey would be yes, response would be null, and this survey was sent to the user on 18th of April. Now we can see that we have a second row for survey ID 103, which says that survey indicator is null, but the response column is yes. So it means the user ID 2 has responded to this survey on 20th of April. Now based on this data, we have 3 follow-up questions. So let's see how can we do on the SQL as well as our thought process. So before we jump into the SQL, let's say what would be our plan to write a SQL for it. So the first question is find the total count of surveys sent. How many total number of surveys we have sent to the user, how many have responded, and how many have not responded to the survey. So simply what we can say that to find the total count of surveys, we can use like a count of distinct survey IDs. So in this way, we can say that how many surveys we have sent. Now responders, how many responded, we can simply find total count of users where response equal to yes, where the response column equal to yes. And how many people who have not responded to the survey, we can say that total number of surveys sent minus total number of responders, which basically will give you the total count of non-responders. So now let's jump into the SQL editor and see how can we write a SQL for it. Now let's see how can we write the SQL to find the total surveys sent, total responders, and the total not responded. So the way we will start is, as we discussed, we will use select count of distinct survey ID, survey ID as total surveys. The next thing what I'm planning to do is to use a count function and then the case statement, case when response in yes. So that will tell me how many have responded. In a yes, then total responders, and then I will put it as end, close it, and then as total underscore responders. And to find the non-responders, it's a straightforward. A non-responder would be select the total number of surveys and minus this particular condition. and this will basically tell me the total non-responders. And now let me put the name of the table and let's run it. Now we can see the output. We can see that there are total 5 surveys, out of which 2 have responded and 3 have not responded yet. The next question is we need to find at a user ID level. So the next question is find the total count of surveys sent, responders and non-responders by each user. So now we need to find at a user level how many have responded and how many have not responded. What are the total number of sends to each, total number of surveys sent to each. So it's a very straightforward. I think we don't need to change anything. We just need to add the column called user ID and then we can put as a group by. And I think it will tell us at each user ID. So we can see that for user ID 1, 2 surveys were sent. This guy has responded out of 2 one time. Similarly for user ID 2, we have sent 2 surveys and similarly 1 responded and 1 non-responded. And for a user ID 3, we have sent 1 survey and he has not responded on that particular one. So the next question is we need to find the total number of days between each survey for each user. So for example, we see that on this table user ID 1, we have sent 2 surveys. So the first survey we sent on 6th of April and the second survey to user ID 1 we have sent on 15th of April. So we need to find out what is the number of days difference between their previous survey and the current survey. So the way I'm planning to do is to use a function like date difference and then we will calculate the time difference between their current survey date and the previous survey date. So the way I'm writing the SQL is select user ID, then survey ID, so that we can also know that which are the survey ID has been sent to the user. And now I will calculate that the total number of date difference. So date difference, then I'm taking the variable as a day and now I'm passing the lag function. So I will use a lag function to find their previous survey date. So we have a date column and then over partition by at each user level. So partition by user ID and order by obviously by date. So this basically tell me the previous survey date and then I'm subtracting with their current survey date. And let's say we can say that date difference. And then we can use this table name from. And another thing which we need to make sure that we only select those rows where survey in yes. Where survey in yes. So because yes indicator at survey column tell us that we have sent a survey to somebody. So make sure that you put a survey and let's say order by user ID. And let's run it. And we can see that for user ID 1, that survey ID 100, date difference is showing null because that was his first survey. But the next survey was 102 and it was sent in a gap of 9 days. Similarly for user ID 2, 101 null basically is like its first survey. And for user ID 2, the second survey was sent after 10 days with a survey ID of 103 and so on. So the next question is, we have given a table called department salary, which has 3 columns, department, employee ID and salary. So we can see that there are 2 departments are there, HR and tech, and each department has some couple of employees with their salaries. So now the question is, we need to find those employees whose salary is greater than the average salary of their department. So for example, HR has 2 employees here, 1 and 2, and their salaries are 100 plus 200. So the average salary of HR is 150. So we need to find those employees in the HR whose salary is greater than 150. So basically we need to print for each department the IDs of those employees whose salary is greater than the average salary of their respective departments. So let's see what would be our thought process in solving this. So obviously the first step would be to find the average salary of each department, and then we will use as one of the table, and then we will use left outer join to join the table we create in step 1 with our main table, and then filter those records where employee salary is greater than the average salary. So let's see how can we do on the SQL. So first let's see how the data looks like. So select star from table name. So let me execute, and we can see that there are 5 records are there with 3 columns. Let's see how can we build a logic to get the employee IDs whose salary is greater than average salary. So first let's find the average salary of the department. So we will use average salary, and the dimensionality I'm putting as department. From this table, and then obviously group by department. And now I'm taking this as a one of the table. So let me run and see how the output will look like. And we can see the average salary of department is 150 and for tech is 175. So let me run it back to see the name of the columns. And now I'm using it as one of the table. So left outer join this table with a main table. Let's give it name as A. And now basically we will display the department name, and then the name of the employee ID, and we can also showcase their salary, and we can also show let's say as average department salary. So we can put it here as let's say B, and we can rename it as B here. And this would be from risk department salary table, which is our main table. So we are doing a left outer join, and we are doing this left outer join on department, on A dot department equal to B dot department. And as we know that we will filter out where A dot salary is greater than the average department salary. And let's run it. And we can see that for HR department there is an employee called employee ID 2 whose salary is 200, which is greater than their respective department, which is 150. And for the tech, the employee ID is 4 whose salary is 300, and their department average salary is 175. So this is how we can write down the SQL to find all those employees for individual department whose salary is greater than their respective departments. So the next question is, we have given a table called balance before input date, which has 3 columns: account ID, as of date, and balance. This table basically telling for each account the amount of balance they owe on certain date. So we can see that for account ID 1, 1st of March, their balance is 100, whereas on 12th of April, their balance is 80, and so on. So what this question is asking is that you need to find the balance of each account based on the input date. So for example, if somebody has enter the input date as, let's say 25th of April, then we need to display what is their balance before 25th of April. So for example, for account ID 1, now if somebody if this guy log in on 25th of April, they should see a balance of 80, because their next transaction 200 balance, which happens of 6th of May. So if somebody log in on 25th of April, they will be seeing this kind of a balance, 80. Similarly, for account ID 2, when this account ID log in on 25th of April, they will see a balance of 250. And similarly for account ID 3, when they log in on 25th of April, so on 25th of April, their balance should be 50, because their third transaction happened on 25th of May. So if they log in on 25th of April, they will be seeing the balance as 50. So we need to display the balance for each of the account based on the input date. So our thought process would be in order to solve it. So what we will do is, first of all, we will create a window function at each account ID level, and then we will arrange the transaction at the descending order. Now we will filter those records for each account where as of date is less than the input date. So let's say 25th of April. And then we will display all the records where let's say row number is 1. So in that way we will come to know for each of the account what is their balance as of input date. So let's see how can we code this problem in the SQL. So let's see the data for this table first. And when we run it, we can see that there are around 8 records are there, which there are 3 unique account IDs with their as of date and the balances. So let's see how can we write down the SQL. So as we discussed, first we will create a window function at each account ID level. So I'm writing that code. Select account ID, and then we will write down as of date, and then we will write down the balance. And here now I will create a row number function. And over partition by account ID. So partition by account ID, and then we will order by their balance as of date in descending order. Order by as of date in descending order, and I'm giving this name as row. So this is how we will create a function or a Windows function at each account ID level. And then what I'm saying, as I said, that we will filter out the records based on this condition where as of date is less than our input date. So let's say our input date is 2021, 04 and 25. So this is how we will create this this function. So what I will do, I will give it the name as A. So let's run this and see what is the output we are getting here. And we can see that for each account ID, I'm getting the row number as 1, 2. For account 2, I'm getting the row as 1, 2, 1, 2. And we can see that all the as of dates now before the 04, 25. And it has filtered out those records where the as of date was greater than this 0425. So now it's very simple. So select star from, and then what we will do, where a dot row equal to 1, Now it's telling me before that input date of 0425, for account ID the balance is 80, for account 2 the balance is 250, and for account 3 the balance is 50. So the next question is we have given 2 tables. The table on the left which has the revenue level transaction at each customer. So we have 5 columns: customer ID, order date, revenue, and the product ID. So this left table which basically will tell you that this customer ID 1, when they made order. So this guy has made the order on 1st of January. What was the sale on that? Let's say it's $100. And what was the product he or she bought? So it's PA. Now we have another table on the right which is like a reference table for product. So we can see for each product ID it has given on the right what are the category it belongs. So basically you can join these 2 tables based on the product ID. So on the right table it's a reference table for product. So in order to find in which category this product fall into it, you can see on the right table. Now the question is asking that you need to find the top 2 or top 3 products for each category by revenue. So for example, for CA category, we need to find out which are my top 3 products in terms of revenue. And similarly for CB category, I need to print out which are my top 2 or 3 products based on the revenue. So my thought process would be, first of all, to join both the tables based on the product ID. Then I will create like a Windows function, and then partition at category, and then order by sum of revenue in the descending order. I'm doing this sum of revenue because one product can have multiple transactions as well. So I just want to sum up all those transactions. And then finally, I will filter out the records where my row number is less than equal to 3. In that way, I will get the top 3 products for each category. So let's see how can we do the SQL on the editor. So let's see what are the content what we have in both the tables. So let's start with the product risk table. And when I run it, I can see that the columns with customer ID, order date, revenue, and the product ID. And let's confirm on the second table as well, which is the product reference table. And we can see that in the second table, we have a list of product ID along with their category ID. So basically what the first thing we can do is to join both the tables using, let's say, left outer join. And at the same time, we will also write the Windows function to get the rank as well for each of the product. So let's start with it. Let me run the first table to get the name of the columns. So what I'm doing is that let me fetch first the let's say category ID, which will be present in the second table. So I know the name of the column, which is category ID, and then a dot product ID. And then I will do the sum of revenue, because as we know that each product can have multiple transactions, so I want to do the aggregation for that. So I can write the name as, let's say, total sales, and then I will create a dense rank function to get the rank of each of the products. So dense rank over partition by. So here I am doing the partition. Here I am doing the partition by category ID, which will be b dot category ID, and then order by sum of revenue. And I will put it in the descending order. And let's say I'm giving this as rank. So the name of this table is product revenue, and let's say it's A, and then I'm doing the left outer join with a second table, which is product category, and giving the name as B, and on A dot product ID and B dot product ID. And since we have done the aggregation, so let's do the group by. And this we will do. So let's see what is the output we are getting from this table. And we can see that for each of the product, I'm getting some kind of a rank. So for, let's say, for category A, I can see which are my top products. They are arranged in the descending order of total sales, and the rank has been given. What I will do, I will give it the name as, let's say, C. And then finally, I will fetch all the records of the C dot table. And I'm also putting a condition where, because we need, let's say, display the top 3 products of each category. So we can give the name as C dot rank less than equal to 3. And now we can see that for each of the category A, which are my top 3 products based on the total sales. So the next question is, we have a table which has 2 columns, customer ID and how much they have paid, what is the total paid. So we can see that for customer ID 66, they have made like 5 transactions, or 5 times they have paid their, let's say, a loan. So the question is asking for each customer ID. For each customer ID, find their lowest total paid and the highest total paid. So for example, for customer ID 66, the lowest total paid would be 0, and the highest total paid would be 10,534. So the idea would be, in order to find that, we will use like a window function as max to get the highest total paid, and similarly we will use a window function as min to get the lowest total paid. So let's see how can we do on the SQL editor. So let's see the records in the table. So let me run it, and we can see we have a column customer ID with the total paid. So now let's find out for each of the customer how much is the highest and the lowest total paid. So let's start with select. So let's start with the customer ID, and now it's asking, let's print their maximum or highest total paid using the max function, max total paid over, now partition by customer ID, so we can write it as a highest paid, and similarly we can do with min. So we can min, and then we can put the distinct, and when we run it, and here we get for each customer ID their highest paid and the, let's put it as lowest paid, and let's rerun it. And this is how we got the output. Let's say for first customer ID 135717, their highest paid and the lowest paid is same, which is 0. Let's say this customer ID 52285, their highest paid so far 4216 and the lowest is 0. So the next question is we have given the same table, customer ID and total paid column, and this time they are asking for each customer find their highest total paid and the second lowest total paid. So in the previous question they asked find the lowest and the highest, but this time they are asking second lowest total paid and the highest total paid. So what I am planning to do is to use the similar concept, use the window function as max to get the highest total paid, and similarly I will use the window function to get the second lowest total paid, but will filter row number equal to 2, and then finally I will do a inner join of step 1 and step 2 to get for each customer their highest total paid and the second lowest total paid. So let's see how can we do on the SQL editor. So now let's first start with writing the query to get the second lowest one. The second lowest one for each customer ID, and then I'm taking the column as total paid and put it as a second lowest. Now I'm creating a Windows function. So I'm taking the function called row number, and then row number over, and then partition by customer ID. Partition by customer ID, and then order by total paid in ascending order itself. And then I'm giving the name as row from this table. And then putting as B. So we have created this table. So now as I mentioned that, and this table is basically will give me my highest, so I can remove this lowest one, which we did in the previous question. So this particular statement will give me the highest paid. This will give me the second lowest one. So let's do an inner join and combine both. And then second lowest, that will become from the B dot, and do the inner join with the other table, which is this one, B, and the condition what we are putting now, where B dot row equal to 2, because as we know that from the second table we will take only the row number equal to 2, because that row number will tell me the second lowest, and then I'm joining the first table and the second table based on their customer ID. And I think that's pretty much will be the logic. I think we should get a right result. And this is what we have got for each customer ID. We got their highest paid and the second lowest paid. So for example, for this customer ID, their highest paid is 3648 and the second lowest is 0. So the next question is, we have given a table with 3 columns, their customer ID, status ID, and the origination date. So now the question is saying, fetch those customer ID whose status ID equal to 19 are present consecutively in 3 or more times. For example, let's say for 66 has this 19 3 times. So we need to print this customer ID and their origination date. And similarly, 67 doesn't have any status ID 3 times equal to 19, so we will not count this guy. So similarly, 68 has a 3 consecutive 19, so 68 will be present in the output. So let's see how can we do on the SQL. But before that, let's understand what would be our thought process. So the thought process would be very straightforward. We will use some kind of a case statement and then check the condition of 3 consecutive rows at each customer level using a lead function. So now let's jump into the SQL editor. So let's see the quick preview of the data of the 3 columns. So we have customer ID, status ID, and origination date. So let's run and see the data for those 10 records. And we can see the customer ID, status ID, and origination date. So now let's run. As we discussed, we will use a case statement and then use the lead function. So let's see how can we do. So first, let's say customer ID. I'm checking for the customer ID. Let's print their status ID and let's say origination date as well. Now let me write down the case statement. So case when. So now I'm checking the status IDs. Status ID equal to lead function. Now here we will use the lead function and we will put it as a status ID. Then over partition by So now here we will put the order by and origination date, so that to get the 3 consecutive status IDs based on the origination date. So this function basically will check the current one and the next one. Now here I'm putting another condition where status ID. So now this particular will check the first two, whether the first two are equal to or not. And I'm putting the end condition. So this will check the first and the 3. So if both the conditions are true, then it means they are in the continuous 3. Then they are in the continuous. Or else, I will put the else condition. Else, no, they are not continuous. And let's put the end. And we can give the name as, let's say, flag, status flag. And the table name would be our daily loans. And let's put it here. So in this way we will get it. And now, in order to display which are those customers who have us continuous, here I'm putting it outside of the subquery. And here I'm putting that. Just show me those ones where a dot status flag in continuous. So this one. And now let's run it and see the output. And now it's showing me all the list of all the customer ID which has some consecutive 3 status ID equal to 19. So let me show you the intermediate results as well of the table, the subquery what we have created. And we can see that it's showing me the customer ID and the status flag. So we can see that here it's showing me the continuous because it has found 3 continuous 19. Whereas here it has not found continuous 19 for customer ID 67. So it's no. And that's why we have created a distinct of 8 dot customer ID where I'm putting the status flag as continuous and displaying that. So the next question is we need to write a SQL query which can find the employees who earn more than their managers. So we can see that we have a table called employee and there are 3 columns in it. First is the employee ID, the list of all the employees, let's say in a team, in a given team. And column B is a salary. So what is the salary of each of the employees? And in the third column, manager ID is basically their manager ID. So we can say that for employee ID 1, their manager ID is 2. So this particular guy is the manager of employee ID 1. Similarly for 3, the manager is 2. For 4, employee ID 4, the manager ID is 2. So for each of the employee ID, we are given the salary. So we need to write a SQL to find the employees who earn more than their managers. So the way we can do or the way we can approach this problem is first let's find out the distinct managers and their salary. So we can see in the third column we have around 4 or 5 managers, manager ID 1, 2, 6, 15. And let's create a sub table or a temp table which will store the IDs of all the manager and their respective salary. For example, this manager ID 2 salary is 5,000. Similarly for manager ID 6, this 6, so we can see in this column is $6,000. So we will create this kind of a temp table or a subquery through subquery, and then join this temp table with our main table based on the manager ID. And then we will display the records where employee salary is greater than the manager salary. So let's see how can we do in the SQL. So let's quickly see how the data looks like in a table, in a SQL table. So I just ran the query and we can see that there are 15 rows are there. So the first column is employee ID, second column is a salary, and third is a manager ID. So as we discussed, first what we will do is to find or create a sub table which basically store the manager ID details and their respective salaries. So the way we will do is, let's say select employee underscore ID, and let me type the table name as well so that its column name can be populated automatically. And then we'll basically store their salary, and then we will put a where condition, where employee underscore ID in, and then select of distinct manager underscore ID from this particular table. And let's see how this table output looks like. So when I ran it, we can see that there are 4 managers are there with IDs like 1 to 6, 1, 2, 6 and 15, and that is their respective salary. So the next step would be to join this table with the main table what we have. So the way we will go is select from this table name, and then I'm putting as A, then left outer join, and then we can give it this table name as B, and I will join on the key on A dot manager ID, because we are joining the table based on the manager ID, and then B dot because we have given the name as employee underscore ID, so employee underscore ID, and then the columns which I'm fetching from both the tables, let's say all the columns from the first table, and then from the second table I'm taking salary. That would be the as manager salary. So let's run and see what output looks like. And we can see that for every employee ID, their manager ID salary is present. So manager ID 2 and its salary is 5,000. So we can see it's 5,000. For this manager ID 1, its salary is written here, 10,000. Similarly for manager ID 6, its salary is showing 6,000. So we can verify from this column it's 6,000. So now the next condition, we put a filter condition where A dot salary is greater than B dot salary or the manager's salary. And in this way, we will able to find out which are those employees whose salary is greater than their managers. And we can see that there are two employees are there. Employee ID 1, its salary is 10,000, whereas its manager salary is only 5,000. And similarly for employee ID 11, its own salary is 8,000, whereas its manager ID 15 salary is 4,800. Next question is we have given two tables. So the table on the left basically is like a reference table where it's storing the customer ID and their name. So we can see that for customer ID 1, their name is Mark, and customer ID 2, and the name is Tom, and so on. So we are basically storing the customer ID and their name. Now on the right table, basically we are storing the details of customers, the orders they have made. So for example, customer ID 1 has made 2 orders and their order IDs are 101 and 102. Similarly for the customer ID 2, this customer has made 2 orders with us and the 2 order IDs are 202 and 301. So basically we need to write down the SQL query to report all customers who never order anything. So we can see from this small table, the customer 4 and 5 have not made any order because their IDs are not present on the right table. So we are expecting to have an output with customer ID 4 and 5. So let's see what would be our thought process. So what I'm planning to do is to join both the tables and then filter the values where customer ID is null. So we will do the left join and then filter the values where customer ID is null. In that way, it will print me customer ID 4 and 5. So let's see how can we do on the SQL editor. So let's quickly see the data for both of the tables, and we can see when I ran this customer table, so I have the customer ID and their names, and similarly when I am running the order table, so that has a list of customer IDs and the orders they have made. Now the question is to find the customers who have not made any order. So as I discussed in our thought process, I will join both the tables based on the left outer join. So what I'm doing is that select A dot star, so taking all the columns from both the tables, and then let me take this from risk dot customer, so giving A and then left outer join the second table, and I'm giving the as B, and then basically I'm joining on customer ID. So A dot customer ID equal to B dot customer ID, and then as I said that I will filter out the records where we have the null. So let's say B dot order ID is null. So when I ran it, we get the 2 customers ID 4 and 5, Nancy and Sarah, and they have not made any order with us. So that's the expected output. And so the next question is we have given a table which has 3 columns: ID, date, and the temperature. So we can see that it's recording the temperature for every day. So we can see that on 1st of January, the temperature is 10 degree, whereas on 2nd of January, temperature is 25, whereas on 3rd of January, temperature is 20. So we need to write down the SQL query to find all the dates or IDs when the temperature is higher as compared to its previous day. So find those IDs or the dates when the temperature is higher as compared to its previous day. So for example, if you see the ID number 2, we have a temperature 25 on that day, which is higher than its previous day, which is 10 degrees Celsius. Similarly, we can see ID 4. So the temperature on that day is 30 degree, which is greater than its previous day when the temperature is 20. So we need to write down the SQL which can tell me which are those IDs when the temperature is higher as compared to its previous day. So the thought process would be, first of all, I will find the previous day for each row using the lag function, and then subtract the current date or today's day temperature from the previous day, and then select those rows where the today's day temperature is greater than its previous day temperature. So let's see how can we implement in the SQL. So let's first see the data what we have on this table. So we can see that there are 10 rows are there with IDs, date, and the temperature. So let's see how can we write down the SQL for it. So first step, as I mentioned, that I will calculate the for each row their previous day temperature. So the way I will do, select ID and then record underscore date, the temperature, and then I will use the lag function, temperature, and then over, and then I am doing the order by record date. And I'm calling this as a previous day. And then the name of the table is from risk higher previous day. So let's run it and see what is the data we are getting here. So we can see that another new column has been added, which is called previous day, and it's basically storing the temperature for a previous day. So we can see for 25 the previous day temperature is 10, so it's showing here 10. Now in the ID 3, the current day temperature is 20, whereas the previous day temperature is 25. So now we have got the previous day temperature. Now what I'm doing is I'm using this as a subquery, and then we'll filter out the records. Now I'm filtering out the records where temperature is greater than the previous day, where a dot temperature is greater than the previous day. And when we ran it, so we found there are two IDs are there when the current day temperature is greater than its previous day. So there are ID 2, 4 and 7. So these are their current or today's temperature, and these are previous day temperature. And when we can see for all the three IDs, current temperature is greater than its previous day. So the next question is, we need to find the second highest salary in this given table. So in the given table, we have ID and the salary. So in this whole table or in the whole data set, we need to find which is the second highest salary in the table. So given the input salary 100, 200 and 300, so the output should produce second highest salary as 200. So let's see how can we do in the SQL editor. So let's run this query and see what is the data we have. So we can see that we have like a 15 rows and the salary in the second column. So in this table, we need to find what is my second highest salary in it. So what we do, we will use first we will find what is the max of salary in this table. From this table. And then what I'm doing is put in the where condition. So this basically will tell me what is my max salary in this table. So what I'm saying that find the rows where the salary is where the salary is less than the max of salary. So basically it will find me all the rows where the salary is less than the max of salary. And then I'm simply writing here, select top one star from this table. And that's pretty much. The another thing we need to mention is order by salary in descending order. So this particular row basically will find all the rows where the salary is less than the max salary. So we will get the let's say if there are 15 rows are there, we will basically get 14 rows. Now I'm arranging those 14 rows in the descending order and just picking the first row. So first row will automatically become the second highest salary from this table. So when I run it, so let me update the table name. Okay. Now we can find that the employee ID 11, salary 8,000, and that is the second highest salary in this table. So in this case study, we have a data set which basically store user login details. So when user have login into the account, at what time of the day, when they have end the session, and what is their location. So if you see on the first row for user ID 19, this user has login on 1st of August in the morning at 6 a.m. then end the session at 7, and the location was New York. And similarly, we have stored the user's login information for almost 6 to 8 months. And based on this data set, we have some follow-up questions. So let's go one by one. So the first question on this particular data set is find the list of all the users their first login date. So if we need to display for each user when the first time they log into the system. So the simple way I can do is that find every user's minimum login date. So which basically will tell me that when this particular user login into the account for the first time. So in this data set, just we need to find the minimum login date for each of the user. So let's see how can we write in the SQL. So let's see first about the preview of this data set. So let me run it, and we can see the data set which has a user ID. I'm displaying the top 10 records and showing the user ID, the login date, session start time, session end, and the login location. So as the first question says that for each user we need to find their first login date. So the way we can do is to find each user's minimum login date. Minimum login date. So from this particular table, and then we will group by user ID. And let's say order by let's put as a first date, and let's order by first date. And when we run it, now we have found like for each user what is their first login date. For 21 user ID 21, so this particular user has login on 1st of August, and similarly we can see for other users as well. So the next question is we need to find the total count of new users and the repeated users in each month. So new user means like whoever log in for the first time in that month, we will count it as a new user. And the repeated users would be those one who have previously or in the previous month have registered for the first time, and in the current month they are coming back again for some activity. So the question is we need to find the total count of new users and repeated users in each month. So let's see how can we do in our SQL. So I have already run the table. So as we already know that we have user ID, their login date, login location. So the question, as we know that we need to find the total number of new users and repeated users for every month. So what I'm doing is that first of all, for every user, I'm planning to find their registration date, or maybe I can say their minimum login date or their first login date. So that's how I will know that, what is for each user, what is their registration date. And then that particular table I will join with the main table, so that in every row I would know what is their login date and what is their registration date. So if their login date and registration date is exactly matching, then I will count that particular row as a new, and otherwise it will be called as a repeated one. So let's see how can we do. So let's first find out for each user their first login date, or I can call it as a registration date. So minimum login date. So I'm giving this as name as a registration date. As registration date, and then we will do a group by on user ID. And let's see and run it what we will get here. Now it's telling me for each user ID what is their first login date or a registration date. Now what I will do, I will join this particular sub table or a table with the main one. So let's join and see what output we will get here. So let's say I'm taking all the columns from my left table as well as from the right table, and then I'm joining with the risk main table and giving this name as A, and then left outer join. So now I'm joining with the left outer join here as B. Now let's join these two tables based on the user ID on A dot user ID equal to B dot user ID. And now let's run it and see what output we are getting here. And we can see that for every row we have got the login date as well as their registration date as well. So what I'm planning to do, instead of taking all the columns, since we don't need all the columns, like for example session start, session end, login location. So what I'm doing, I'm just picking out the main column, which is user ID, login date, and that's pretty much. And I'm taking a distinct of it. So for example, if somebody has login 5 times in a given month, I will take a distinct of that. So I will take only one, because I just want to count the total number of users who have login. I don't want to count the total number of logins. So in order to count the total number of users, I will take a distinct one, so that even if they have login 5 times, I will count it as a 1. So let me put it here as a distinct. And now I am taking only the important column. So let's say user ID. And then next part, what I'm doing, since we need to find at the monthly level, so what I'm doing is at month A dot login date, and similarly I will do year, because we have 2 years, 2021 and 2022. A dot login date and giving as year, and this is I'm giving as a month. Now I'm putting another condition here. I'm doing the case statement. For the case statement, what I will do, whenever a login date or a month of login date is equal to month of registration date, I will call it as a new user, or else it would be a repeated user. So case when month of A dot login date equal to month of B dot registration date. B dot, let me copy. Then I will call it as a new user. So it means on that particular month, they have enrolled or subscribed to the company. Then user, or else repeated user. And then and I'm giving as a, let's say, user flag. And let's run it and see what output we are getting here. And we can see that for every user, for every month and year, we will get the new user, repeated users, and so on. So the next part what we are planning to do is to do a finding the total count of new users and repeated user across month now. So I am taking this whole as a subquery and then put it, and let's give it a name as C. So now the next step is to find the aggregation. So select, let's say, C dot year and then C dot month, and now I'm doing the count. So I'm for a count case when our user underscore flag in, let's say, in as a new user, in new user. Then I'm giving the name as, let's say, new user count. New user count. And then end as, let's say, new user count. And similarly, let's give it a C. And similarly, we can do for repeated users. Or repeated users. Let's copy here, repeated user count. So in that way, we will come to know how many total number of repeated users and the new user count. We can also do the proportion of it, like in a given month, what is the proportion of repeated user divided by new user count. It's simple, so we can just divide this thing and divide it by. So what I'm doing, I'm doing the cast, because if I divide int by int, we will not get the right proportion. So I'm converting one of the thing as a float. So just doing the float for the numerator one. And then finally, another thing what we can do is to find the running sum of total new user across every month. So we can use the sum window function, and let's say we will pass this condition, sum of count and this thing. And then we can use the over and across year and month. So order by C dot year and C dot month. So in this way we will get the running sum as well, or running count of users, Let me put a comma here. And let's run it and see. I think we need to do a group by as well. Group by C dot year, C dot month, and let's do the order by in this way as well. So let's run it and see the output. And now we have got the aggregation count across each month. So we can see for our first month in the database is month of 8 August 2021. We have new user count of 7, and there is no repeated user because this is the first month. So and the running count user 7. Similarly, in the next month, September, the total new user who have joined is 9. And the repeated user who have come back is 7. So probably this would be the same one which got enrolled in the August, and this would be proportion 0.77. And we can see the running sum 7 plus 9, 16. Similarly, in the October of 2021, we have a total new user count of 9 and repeated is 14. And this is the proportion, 14 divided by 9 is 1.55. And the running count of users become 25. So 7 plus 9, 16, 16 plus 9, 25, and then similarly 25 plus 8, 33. So in that way we can find out the running sum across each month, as well as how many new joinees across each month. We can also validate. We can see that here is showing that we have 52 users or distinct users in our data. So we can quickly check in the overall on the overall data as well, like how many new users we have. So we can do count of distinct, let's say user ID from, we should get like 52, and we are coming 52. It means we have written the right, our numbers are exactly matching. So this is how we can find out the total number of users across each month, whether it's a new users or a repeated users or a running sum of it. So the next question is asking find the total logins in each day. I think let's go with a month. So we need to find how many total logins are there in each month as well as the running sum. So the way I'm planning to do is to find first the total count for each month, and then step 2 would be finding the running sum of total count by using a sum windows function. So let's see how can we do in SQL editor. So let's get started. First, as I suggested, I will find the total count across year, month, and a day. So let's say select year. Let me type the table name. Select year, login date. Let's say as year, and then similarly we can do for month and day as well. And let's say day, and this would be month as day, and then we will count of stars. So it will tell me how many total number of transactions or total number of counts are there across year, month, and day, and I'm giving this name as total count. And table name we have already given, and let's put the group by condition. So group by condition, I'm giving this one. So in this way we will find the total count. So let me run this and showcase what results we are getting, and it will show at year, month, day how many total count of logins are happening. So I'm putting this in a subquery. And now on top of it I will count the sum of this total count. So that will give me like a running sum. So select a dot year, a dot month, a dot day, a dot total count, and now I will use the Windows sum function to get the running sum. Total count over order by a dot year, a dot month, and a dot day, and I'm putting as running sum, and then from. So in that way it will tell me about the total sum and as well as the running sum. Now it's telling me for 2021-816 how much is the total transactions or a total logins, 6. And then if you see on second day there were total 4 logins, but the running sum now it's 10 because 6 plus 4 10. Now on day 3 the total logins happened 17, but the running sum has become 27 because 6 plus 4 10, 10 plus 17 27. So this is how you can find the total count of logins every day as well as the running sum. So the next question is find the users which are active and inactive right now. So this is the definition for active and inactive is if any user has not made any login from the last for more than 15 days, then we will call it as inactive. So the way we are planning to do is to find each user the date difference between the current date, what is the today's date, and the most recent login date or the max date. If the difference of the days are greater than 15, then obviously we will label as inactive, or else count or else active, and then we will display the list of all the users who are inactive or active. At the same time, we can also do like group by flag to find how many total number of active users currently are and how many total number of inactive users are. So we can display the list of users as well as we can show the count of active and inactivity as well. So let's see how can we do on the SQL. So now let's get started. So what I'm assuming here is that today is, let's say it's 26th of January. So assume that today is 26th of January. So we will use that day as a current date because this data is quite old. So if we use the October 2022, you will not get any kind of a relevant result. So assume that the current date is 26th of January 2021. So what I am doing here, user ID, and let me put the name of the table here, user ID, and then I'm creating like a today's date, which is, let's assume it's 01/26/2022, and as date, and consider as a current date. And then to get the most recent login date for each user, I'm using the max windows function. So in the max, I will pass the login date over partition by user ID. Partition by user ID, and I'm calling this as a max date. And the next step is to find the difference between the most recent login date and the current date. So I'm using the function date diff, and then passing as day, and then I will pass this one max. And let's run and see the output here. So as we can see, it's telling me for each user, let's put the distinct here. Now it's telling me that for each user, what is their current date. Current date is, we assumed is to be 26th of January, and what is their most recent login date. So we can see that there are some users which have logged in the last 7 days. So we technically call them as an active people. So let's create a case statement. Case when this date difference, if it's less than 15, then we will call it as a active, and let's say else they are inactive. Else they are inactive. And then we can end this, and let's say as status. Let's say we are calling it the status flag. And in this way, this case statement will tell me, it will label the flag for everybody. So let's treat this particular select statement as a subquery, and we can put it as A. Let's run and see what output we get here. Before we create it as a subquery, let's run and see. And we can see that it's giving me for each user their inactive and the active state. So what we can do, we can create this as a subquery and find the total number of count. Select, let's say status underscore flag, and then count star, and then from, and here put it in the brackets, and A, and then we can do the group by A dot status flag. And it's telling me that in our user base there are 10 users which are currently active and 42 users have been inactive. So the last question of this case study. So now we need to find out who are my top 2 or top 3 users in each location based on the total number of logins. So as an output, I need to produce, let's say for New York, who are my top users, or top 2 users, or top 3 users, based on the total number of time they have logged into to their web portal. So the way I'm planning to solve this problem is, I will use the window function as a row number, and then partition by geography, and then order the users based on the total number of logins, and then finally filter the rows where row number is less than 2 or 3 depending upon. So let's say 3. So let's print out for each location, each geography, who are my top 3 users based on the total number of logins. Now let's see how can we write the SQL query to find the top 3 users for each geography. So the way I'm planning to start, let's say here I can start. Select login location, then user ID, and then I will calculate the count of star, and I'm giving the name as total underscore logins. And now I will use the window function, let's say row underscore number over partition by, and then I'm giving the login underscore location, and then obviously I'm doing the order by let's say I'm doing the order by count of star, and putting as a descending order because we need to find the top 3, and just giving the name as, let's say, or in fact instead of using the row number, let's use a dance underscore rank, and I'm giving as row. So this would be my subquery for that, and make sure that we are putting a group by condition because we are doing the aggregation here. So we can put, and now I can say that as this subquery as A. And now simple, I just print all the rows, all the columns of subquery A dot star from, and here I can give the condition where A dot row should be less than equal to 3. Now it's telling me for Chicago my top 3 users. So the top 3 users are 22, 13 and 4. Similarly, it's telling me for Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Miami and so on.